Suture, a Cenobite's Testament. Chapter 1. The Whisper of the Box. I was not born in fire. I was born in silence. Before the stitching, before the chains, before Leviathan's light carved me into something sacred, I was a man of flesh, of hunger, of shame. My name was Elias. I lived in a city that never slept, surrounded by noise, neon, and numbness. I worked in a basement archive, cataloging forgotten things, old manuscripts, broken relics, boxes no one dared open. That's where I found it. The box was wrapped in velvet, tucked inside a drawer marked "Do Not Touch." It was beautiful, brass and mahogany, etched with symbols that pulsed when I stared too long. I didn't touch it, not at first. I studied it. I traced its lines with my eyes, memorized its geometry. It whispered to me, not in words, but in need. I began to dream of it. In those dreams, the box floated in a void, spinning slowly, chains drifting like seaweed around it. I saw figures, tall, pale, mutilated, watching me from the edges of the dark. They didn't move, they didn't speak, but I felt their invitation. I stopped sleeping, I stopped eating, I stopped caring. The box consumed me. One night I brought it home. I placed it on my desk, lit candles around it, and sat in the silence. My fingers moved without thought, twisting, pressing, sliding. The box responded. It opened, not with a click, but with a sigh. The room grew cold, the shadows deepened, and then the chains, they came. They didn't burst through the walls. They unfolded from the air, as if reality itself had been stitched shut and was now unraveling. Hooks found my skin, nostrils, eyelids, and the tender webbing between my fingers. They didn't tear, they pulled, not to kill, but to reveal. I should have screamed, I should have begged, but I wept, not from pain, from joy, because in that moment I knew this was what I had always wanted. Not escape, not salvation, truth. The walls of my apartment dissolved. I was no longer in the world I knew. I was in the labyrinth, and Leviathan was watching. Chapter 2. Leviathan's Gaze. There's no time in the labyrinth, no sun, no moon, only motionless geometry and the hum of eternity. I hung suspended in a void of shifting obsidian walls, each surface etched with impossible equations. The chains held me like a marionette, arms splayed, skin taut, hooks embedded in muscle and memory. I should have felt agony, but pain had already begun to lose its meaning. Then Leviathan appeared. It did not walk, it did not speak. It turned, a massive rotating diamond of black metal, floating above the void. Its surfaces shimmered with symbols that bled into my mind. I saw my childhood etched in its corners. I saw every lie I'd ever told, every cruelty, every moment I had had looked away from the suffering. Leviathan did not judge, it revealed. A voice, not sound, but thought, pierced me. You sought truth, you opened the gate. Now you will be unmade. I wept again, not from fear, from clarity. I had spent my life hiding behind flesh, behind shame, behind the illusion of control. But here, in Leviathan's gaze, I was transparent. I was a wound waiting to be named. The Cenobites emerged from the dark. They did not walk, they glided. Their robes trailed behind them like funeral banners. Their bodies were masterpieces of mutilation. Skin peeled back to reveal sacred architecture, mouths sewn shut to preserve their silence. One of them approached me. Her face was a lattice of scars, her eyes replaced with polished nails. She touched my cheek with gloved hand. "You are beautiful," she said, "but you are still unfinished." We began to work. Not torture, artistry. They sliced with precision, not cruelty. They peeled away my skin like parchment, revealing the trembling truth beneath. They stitched my mouth closed, not to silence me, but to teach me to listen. They replaced my eyes with obsidian lenses, tuned to Leviathan's light. I did not scream. I did not resist. I became. When they were done, I was no longer Elias. I was Suture, a priest of pain, a testament of transformation. Leviathan turned once more, and I felt its approval. Not love, not pride, something deeper, something sacred. And then I was cast back, not to earth, but to the threshold, to watch, to wait, to whisper to those who dare open the box. Chapter 3. The First Offering. I was sent back, not as Elias, but as Suture. The world felt different. I walked among the living, but I was no longer one of them. My body was hidden beneath a long coat stitched from flesh and shadow. My face, a lattice of sutures and polished bone, drew no attention. The veil between realms had thinned. I could pass unnoticed, like a whisper in a crowded room. Leviathan had given me a name. Now it gave me a purpose. I was to find the next soul. Not just any soul. One ready, one aching, one who had stared into the abyss and longed for it to stare back. Her name was Mara. She worked nights at a hospice, tending to the dying. Her hands were gentle, her voice soft, but her eyes were hollow. I watched her for days unseen. She lingered too long in rooms after the final breath. She whispered to corpses. She carved small symbols into her skin beneath her uniform, symbols I recognized. She had heard the whispers. One night I left the box for her, wrapped in black silk, placed on the windowsill of room 17, where a man had died screaming of things no one else could see. She found it. She touched it, and the moment her fingers brushed its surface, I felt Leviathan stir. She took it home. I followed. Her apartment was sparse, a mattress on the floor, walls covered in charcoal sketches, figures with no mouths, eyes replaced by nails, limbs bound in wire. She lit candles. She sat cross-legged. She began to solve the box. I stepped from the shadows. She did not scream. She did not run. She looked at me and said, "I knew you'd come." I knelt before her. I took her hands in mine. "You are ready," I said, "but you must understand. This is not escape. This is revelation." She nodded. "I want to be seen." The box opened. Chains erupted from the air, but they did not strike. They hovered, waiting. I guided them gently, one to her wrist, one to her throat, one to the hollow breath beneath her ribs. She gasped, not in pain, but in recognition. Her body arched, her skin split in sacred patterns, and then she was gone. Taken, delivered, chosen. I stood alone in the candlelight. The box closed once more. I felt Leviathan's gaze upon me. Approval, satisfaction. I had made my first offering, and I knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 4. The Choir of Hooks. The labyrinth is not a place. It is a state of being. Its corridors shift with thought. Its walls breathe with memory. The deeper you go, the less you resemble what you were, and the more you become what Leviathan sees. After my first offering, I was summoned to the choir. We do not speak in the labyrinth. We commune. The Cenobites gathered in a chamber carved from the bone of silence. The walls pulsed with veins of black light. Chains hung like chandeliers, swaying to the rhythm only we could hear. Pinhead stood at the center, his presence anchoring the room. His grid-marked face was serene, almost priestly. He raised a hand, and the chains sang, a chorus of metallic whispers, each note a memory of pain. I stepped forward. This was my initiation, not into power, into precision. Pain is not chaos, it is architecture. Every hook, every stitch, every incision must serve a purpose, aesthetic, symbolic, sacred. The ritual began. A soul was brought forth, dragged from the threshold, still clinging to its humanity. His name was Thomas, a philosopher, a skeptic. He had solved the box not out of desire, but out of arrogance. He believed he could understand us. He believed pain was a metaphor. We would teach him otherwise. Chains lifted him into the air, arms spread wide. His body trembled, but his eyes burned with defiance. "You are illusions," he spat. "Manifestations of guilt. I do not fear you." Pinhead approached him slowly. "We are not here to be feared," he said. "We are here to be felt." The first hook pierced Thomas's shoulder. He gasped, not in agony, in confusion. The second hook tore through his thigh. The third embedded in his cheek. Blood dripped like ink, painting the air with truth. I was given the fourth hook. I stepped forward, my hands trembling, not with hesitation, but with reverence. I placed the hook gently into his abdomen, aligning it with the scar of a childhood surgery. Pain must echo. Pain must resonate. Thomas screamed, not from the hook, from the realization. He was not being punished. He was being understood. His memories spilled into the room. His mother's voice, his first betrayal, the moment he stopped believing in love. We saw him entirely, and he could not bear it. He broke. The chains lowered him, limp and sobbing. His body was not torn apart. It was rearranged. His skin now bore the marks of his truth. His mouth was sealed with golden thread. His eyes replaced with mirrors. He was not a Cenobite. He was a lesson. The choir sang again, not with voices, with hooks, with chains, with silence. And I knew pain is not the end. It is the language. Chapter 5. Echoes of Flesh. The labyrinth does not forget. It stores memory like marrow, deep, hidden, but never gone. I had been Suture for what felt like centuries. Time here is not measured in hours, but in incisions, in offerings, in the rhythm of chains. I had stitched dozens into silence. I had guided hundreds into Leviathan's light. I had become a vessel of sacred geometry. But one day the walls whispered my name. Not Suture. Elias. It came in fragments. A scent. Burnt coffee. A sound. Laughter, distant and warm. A flash of color. Yellow wallpaper peeling at the corners. I saw a woman's face. Her eyes were tired, but kind. Her lips moved, forming a name I hadn't heard since the stitching. Elias. I staggered. Cenobites do not stagger. We glide. We descend. We do not remember. I retreated into the lower chambers of the labyrinth, where the walls pulsed with Leviathan's breath. I knelt before a mirror carved from bone and shadow. It did not reflect my form. It reflected my past. I saw myself. Human, fragile, flawed. I saw the night I found the box. I saw the hunger in my eyes, not for pain, for meaning. I saw the moment I chose transformation, and I saw her. Her name was Leora. She had loved me once, before the box, before the stitching. She had tried to save me. I had pushed her away. I told her I needed silence. I told her I needed truth. I told her I needed pain. The mirror cracked. I reached for my chest, where the last remnants of Elias were sealed beneath the wire and flesh. My fingers trembled. I could feel his heartbreak. Weak, faint, but still mine. I tore the stitches apart. Blood spilled, not red but black, thick with memory. I saw Leora's tears. I heard her voice. I felt her hands on my face, begging me to come back. I screamed. Not the scream of agony, the scream of recognition. Chains erupted from the walls. wrapping around me, pulling me back into form. Leviathan's light seared through the chamber, burning away the echoes. The mirror shattered, the heartbeat faded. I was Suture again, but something had changed. I now understood the danger of memory. It is not weakness, it is temptation. The labyrinth offers transcendence, but only if you sever every thread that binds you to flesh. I stitched my chest shut again, tighter, deeper. I carved symbols into the wire, sigils of forgetting. I sealed Elias away, not with hatred, but with reverence. He had brought me here, but he could not stay. I walked back into the corridors, my steps steady, my silence restored, and Leviathan turned once more. Chapter 6. The Architect. He called himself the Architect. Not a name, a title, a declaration. His real name was Dr. Alaric Boss, a professor of metaphysics and ritual design at a forgotten university, buried beneath ivy and arrogance. He had studied the lament configuration for decades, collected fragments, decoded glyphs, even built replicas, but he did not seek pleasure nor pain. He sought control. He believed the Cenobites were programmable, but Leviathan was a machine. The transcendence could be engineered. We watched him from the labyrinth. His rituals were precise, his incantations correct, but his intent was flawed. He did not want to be transformed. He wanted to command transformation. Still, Leviathan allowed him to open the box. It was a test. The moment the final panel slid into place, the air around him fractured. Chains erupted, not violently, but with elegance. They hovered, waiting. The room darkened, and we arrived. Pinhead first, then Surgeon, then me. Alaric did not flinch. He bowed. "Welcome," he said. "I prepared a chamber for you." He gestured to a room, lined with surgical steel and ritual diagrams. Hooks hung from the ceiling. Incense burned in calculated patterns. He had built a temple. Pinhead stepped forward. "You presume to design what cannot be designed. You presume to shape what must be surrendered." Alaric smiled. "I understand pain. I understand the architecture of transcendence. I am ready." We began. Chains lifted him gently. His robe fell away, revealing a body already marked. Self-inflicted scars, ritual tattoos, embedded wires. He had tried to pre-mutilate himself. I approached with my needle. I traced a line down his spine, where he had etched Leviathan's symbol. It was imperfect, crooked. I corrected it with a single deep incision. Alaric gasped, not in pain, in awe. "Yes," he whispered, "more." But Leviathan did not want more. It wanted truth. And the truth was this: Alaric had not surrendered. He had calculated. He had tried to bargain. The chains responded. They did not tear. They unraveled. His skin peeled away in spirals, revealing layers of falsehood. His bones were hollow. His heart was mechanical. His soul was a blueprint. We dismantled him, not out of cruelty, out of necessity. Pinhead placed the final hook in his throat. "You sought to build a temple," he said, "but you forgot the altar." Alaric's remains were scattered across the labyrinth. His diagrams burned, his name erased, but one piece remained. A single vertebra, carved with his flawed symbol. I wear it now around my neck, not as a trophy, but as a warning. Transcendence cannot be designed. It must be earned, and Leviathan does not accept blueprints, only blood. Chapter 7. The Betrayer. His name was once Elias, before the hooks, before the silence, before Leviathan carved his voice into a whisper of static. He had been a violinist, a lover, a man who believed in beauty, and he had loved her. Her name was lost now, burned from the archives, forbidden from the labyrinth. But Elias remembered. Even after transformation, even after his flesh was rewritten into leather and wire, he remembered her laugh, her scent, the way she touched his wrist when she was afraid. This was his betrayal. Cenobites are not meant to remember. We are meant to shed. But Elias hid his memory like a relic. He carved her initials into the inside of his ribcage. He turned his chains to pitch her voice. He wept, not with tears, but with blood. Leviathan noticed. It always notices. One day Elias did not return from the summoning. He had lingered. He had spoken to the summoner, not in riddles, not in pain, but in hope. He told the boy, "You can choose not to open it. You can choose love." The boy fled. The box remained closed. This was heresy. We were sent to retrieve Elias. He did not resist. He knelt. He offered his chains. But Leviathan did not punish him with pain. It punished him with clarity. It restored his face, his voice, his memories, and then it showed him her grave. She had died decades ago, alone, forgotten. Elias screamed, not as a Cenobite, but as a man. And then Leviathan took it all away again. His flesh was reflayed. His voice was re-erased, his memories sealed behind bone. But sometime, when the wind howls through the labyrinth, we hear a note, a single violin string, and we know Elias still remembers, even if he no longer knows why. Chapter 8. The Mirror. Her name was Mara. She was not afraid of pain. She had lived with it, worn it like a second skin. What she feared was not knowing. She had spent years in therapy, in silence, in rituals of self-discovery, but nothing revealed her core, her truth, her why, until she found the box. She didn't stumble upon it. She searched for it. She read the forbidden text, traced the symbols, paid in blood. When she opened it, she did not scream. She whispered, "Show me." Leviathan obliged. We arrived, not with chains, but with mirrors. Each Cenobite carried one, not glass, not silver, but polished bone. We surrounded her. She looked into the first mirror, saw herself as a child, alone, crying, clutching a broken doll. The second showed her as a teenager, cutting her skin, not for pain, but to feel. The third showed her adult life, smiling, performing, lying. And the fourth, it showed her as she truly was, not Mara, not a woman, not a victim, but empty, a vessel shaped by others, a mask worn too long. She collapsed, not from agony, from recognition. Pinhead stepped forward. "You asked to see. Now you must choose." She could become one of us, shed the mask, embrace the void, or she could return, but she would never unknow what she had seen. She chose return. We let her go, but we marked her. Now, every mirror she passes flickers, every reflection distorts, every smile she fakes feels like a scream. She lives, but she does not forget, and one day she will open the box again, not to see, but to be seen. Chapter 9. The Choir. It began with a mistake. A cult in Prague. 12 initiates. One box. They believed that opening it together would grant them unity, transcendence as a collective. They chanted in sync, bled in sync, opened the box in perfect harmony. But Leviathan does not divide its gifts. It multiplied them. The air split, not once, not twice, but 12 times. Each soul was pulled through a separate tear in reality, each scream layered atop the next. We arrived in mid-chorus. Pinhead, the seamstress, the Maw himself, and others, ones rarely summoned, ones who speak only in sound. Chains did not fly, they sang. Hooks struck flesh like drum beats, skin peeled in rhythm, blood splayed and sprayed in crescendos. The cultists did not resist. They joined. Their bodies twisted into instruments. One's ribcage became a harp. Another's vocal cords were stretched into violins. A third was hollowed into a drum. Leviathan hovered above, spinning slowly, casting beams of black light, and then it began to conduct. We played, not music, not noise, but truth. Each note revealed a secret, each chord exposed a lie. The cultists screamed in harmony, not from pain, but from clarity. They had not sought unity, they had sought escape from guilt, from shame, from themselves. Leviathan gave them none. When the symphony ended, the room was silent. 12 bodies, 12 instruments, one song. We left them there, and now, sometimes when the wind moves through the labyrinth just right, you can hear it. A melody, a scream, a hymn. The choir still sings, and Leviathan still listens. Chapter 10. The Collector. He called himself the Collector, not a mystic, not a believer, a curator. He had spent years tracking the aftermath of Cenobite visitations, blood-soaked apartments, scorched churches, whispers in asylum halls. He documented everything, photographed sigils, measured chain impact angles. He didn't fear us, he admired us. But admiration curdled into obsession. He wanted one, not to worship, not to destroy, but to own. He built a vault beneath his estate, lined it with obsidian, reinforced it with sacred metals, installed containment glyphs stolen from ancient texts. And then he opened the box. We arrived. He didn't scream, he smiled. Chains flew that he had prepared. They struck wards, reflected, recoiled. He activated the vault. The maw was trapped, a lesser Cenobite, mouth stitched shut, eyes replaced with mirrors, not powerful, but still divine. The Collector approached her. "You're exquisite," he whispered. "You'll be my centerpiece." He fed her blood, played music, spoke to her like a lover. But Cenobites do not bond, they wait. And Leviathan does not tolerate theft. The maw did not scream, she sang. Her voice shattered the glyphs. Her mirrored eyes reflected his soul, every cruelty, every delusion, every need. He collapsed. Chains erupted from inside him. Hooks tore not flesh but ego. We returned. Pinhead stepped into the vault. You cannot collect what is infinite. You cannot cage what is already damned. The Collector begged, not for mercy, for recognition. "I understood you," he cried. "I loved you." We left him alive, but altered. His body now houses fragments of every Cenobite he ever studied. His skin shifts, his voice echoes, his thoughts are not his own. Chapter 11. The Twins. They were born minutes apart, Ava and Ellie. She was the fire, reckless, curious, always choosing shadows. He was the anchor, quiet, thoughtful, always watching her dance too close to the edge. They found the box in an abandoned chapel, buried beneath dust and forgotten hymns. Ava touched it first. Eli hesitated, but she pulled him in. They opened it together. The air split. The walls bled. Chains slithered from the void. We arrived. Pinhead, the seamstress, myself. Ava stepped forward. "Take me," she said. "I want to know." Eli reached for her hand. "We do this together." But Leviathan does not choose by blood. It chooses by desire. And Ava's desire burned brighter. She was lifted not by chains, by invitation. Her body arched, her skin peeled in sacred spirals. Her eyes turned black. She smiled. Eli screamed, "No, she's mine!" We turned to him. He was not chosen, but he was bound. We did not take him. We left him, alone. He wandered the chapel for days, weeks. He carved her name into the walls. He built altars from bone. He opened the box again and again, but it never opened for him, until one day Ava returned. Not as his sister, as a Cenobite, Her face was a lattice of hooks, her voice a whisper of static, her eyes once warm, now mirrors. She did not speak. She watched. Eli fell to his knees. "Please," he begged, "take me now." She raised a hand. Chains flew, but they did not tear. They stitched. Eli was bound to the chapel, his body suspended between altars, his mouth sealed, his eyes replaced with nails. He became a monument, not to devotion, to envy, and Ava visits him still, not to comfort, to remind him. Desire must be pure, and Leviathan does not share. Chapter 12. The Threshold. The box was opened in silence. No ritual, no blood, no candles. Just a man in a dark room, sitting cross-legged on a concrete floor, staring into the brass geometry of the lament configuration. His name was Jonah. He was not a seeker, not a cultist, not a fool. He was me, not literally, but close enough. He had the same hunger, the same ache, the same need to be unmade. When the box opened, I felt it. Not like a summons, like a mirror. I stepped through the threshold. He didn't flinch. He didn't scream. He looked at me and said, "I know you." I said nothing. He stood, walked towards me. His eyes were hollow but focused. "I've seen you in dreams, in drawings, in the spaces between thoughts. You were Elias." I froze. That name had been buried, stitched shut, but he spoke it like a prayer. "You were like me, before the stitching, before the silence." I raised a hand. Chains stirred, hooks whispered, but he didn't stop. "I don't want pain," he said. "I want truth." And I saw it. In his posture, in his voice, in his eyes. He was ready, but not for torment, for transcendence. I lowered my hand. The chains retreated. I stepped forward, placed the box in his hands. "Then solve it again," I said. "Not to escape, not to suffer, but to become." He did, and Leviathan turned. But this time it did not send chains. It sent light. Jonah was lifted, not torn, not stitched, but rewritten. His body shimmered, his voice dissolved, his thoughts became geometry, and I watched, not as a priest, as a witness, because in that moment I remembered. Not Elias, not pain, but why I chose this path. Not to forget, to understand. Jonah became a Cenobite, not of hooks, not of silence, of clarity. And I knew the labyrinth is not a prison, it's a mirror. And Leviathan does not punish, it reveals. Thank you for joining me. This has been a 2G Styles production.